Hey, thanks for clicking on this video. My name is Zaji, and today we're going to be talking about some sewing things. In particular, we're going to be talking about my wedding dress! Yes, my wedding dress, as well as the other 6 garments that I made for my wedding. And I'm going to get into some juicy details about how I made this dress come together. So if you like sewing content and occasionally some yarny, knitting, crocheting type content, then I encourage you to not only subscribe to this channel, but to click that notification bell so that you don't miss any other uploads from me in the future. So I am filming this video on May 21st, which is the actual day that my husband proposed to me and asked me to marry him, and it was a complete surprise. I want to say that it was really early in the morning. I am not a morning person whatsoever, but I remember my husband was like running around in the house doing a bunch of stuff, and I was asleep, like super asleep in bed. I didn't know what was going on. My husband had gotten dressed. He had on like a button down. My husband hates button downs, by the way. So he was wearing a button down, running around, doing a bunch of stuff. I had no idea what he was doing. I just like, I don't know. Listen, I don't know. So I have him like, I heard him call me outside to go to the front door. And I was just like, that's weird, you know, or maybe he's just doing something he needs help with. So I had no idea still what was going on. I walked outside of our front door and he was on one knee and he asked me to marry him. And I was like, oh my God, yes. Having a heart attack, so excited, bonnet and everything, y'all. And I was just super excited. My husband and I have been together for a couple of years at that point. So it was just like, you know, it could happen at any moment, but you never know what moment it was going to be. But it was so cool to just like wake up and him have put all of this stuff together. My husband is not somebody who likes to plan and do stuff, but he had made it such a cool experience because after he proposed to me, we went to Estes Park, which is actually where we also ended up being married, and we took some really beautiful photos just announcing our engagement. And the very next day I went into surgery. It was actually such a whirlwind year for a lot of different reasons, but I knew that I was going to have surgery on my left hand. So that was, you know, obviously a huge factor in, you know, taking those engagement photos. We were like, listen, we can go now and have a super chill time, you know, be able to get some really beautiful photos and be able to share this moment with other people for the rest of our lives without you having a cast on, because it was just a whole thing. But it was so exciting. I was so happy with how the photos came out, and I was wearing a handmade skirt and I felt so cute, and I had my daughter in a handmade dress. It was just a really fun experience, and after that point it had really set in that, hey, I've literally never thought about what my wedding dress will look like or should look like, and I had not really had any plans on, I guess, making one. It had never really crossed my mind up until this point, and I was like, wow, okay. And then I was thinking, wow, I'm also having surgery. Now, my surgeon didn't tell me anything about what recovery would really look like in terms of time frames, like how soon I would be able to start doing my normal activities again, when I would be okay to do that sort of thing. And I believe 2 weeks post-op, they allowed me to start working with my sewing machine. Limited time, obviously, taking it super, super slowly. And 2 weeks after that point, I had started sewing. So I made some things, but I kind of figured out like, hey, I am going to be able to sew things up, and I want to be able to sew up my wedding dress. So I started just thinking about what I wanted that to look like, and as you can see from the final product, it was definitely something that came out of my dreams. I don't make anything that extravagant. I do wear quite nice things on a regular basis because I just don't like to sew loungewear, so that's just kind of my thing. But making this really big project dress was just something that I had gotten so energized and excited about, and it's almost like, you know, when somebody tells you that you can't do something, it makes you want to do it even more. And, you know, the whole time I was like, I was sewing without a thumb. Like, my thumb couldn't do anything besides go backwards, because I couldn't do any of these kinds of motions at all prior to surgery. So I was more handicapped before I had my surgery as opposed to afterwards, and being just relieved by the fact that, one, I wasn't experiencing the same amount of pain, but also the fact that I was able to do things basically the same way. Like, I could still sew just like I wanted to. Knitting came down the line because that requires a lot more use of, obviously, your thumb. But for sewing, I was able to pretty much do everything that I was able to do before. And in a lot of ways, it really helped me in my physical therapy, and my physical therapist told me that the best way for me to recover from an injury like I had and from a surgery like I had was to teach my body what normal is again. And for me, I'm a busybody who sews all the time, so I need to teach my body to be a busybody that sews all the time, or teach my thumb to be that way. And so once I got cleared to do that, I started sewing random things, but then I really started working on my dress. Now, I don't know. I didn't actually have a lot of like sketchings. I'm not someone who can draw well. I don't draw. So for me, sketching and stuff is kind of moot and more frustrating and time consuming because it doesn't actually benefit me at all because I don't know what this is. This is not intelligible to anyone else, and it's just better to, you know, just write down the details. And so I started basically doing my research and just looking at patterns that I felt were kind of what I was going for, just trying to figure out what I wanted to do. And as I mentioned in the interview that I did with the Workroom Social, which I will have linked down below for you to check out if you are really wanting to get into wedding content, but I talked with her about how I was just like, originally I thought I was going to have this really large skirted dress that was like a ball gown, you know, cupcake, Barbie dress. And I was just like, really for a long time, picking out a lot of patterns that looked like that. And I'll put up some pictures of some of the patterns that I do still have now that I stalked online and found. Like, I literally found Disney costume patterns from Simplicity, and I was going to use that kind of as my base and kind of shape my dress around that. But then I really realized that that is super not me. I am definitely not a cupcake dress kind of person at all. I really don't love those kinds of dresses. I love things that do have that kind of vintage feel to them and feel a lot more classic. And I loved the idea of making something that really reflected more of my personal style, since this is something that is truly going to be a part of my life for a very long time. I'm going to be talking about my wedding dress for years to come. It is such a huge project, and I thought it was more important to make something that really truly felt true to me. So in looking through kind of my patterns, I realized that I really like dresses that have a deep V. All the dresses that are the most exciting to me and the dresses that I love the most are the ones that have those plunging deep V's. And I really like that style on my body shape because I am a long person. And I love the fact that with a deep V cut in the front, it really helps to visually proportion my body shape. I started there. The next thing that I did after that point was find a princess bodice that I really liked. That didn't really happen. So I started with this Lienz pattern, and although I've seen so many people be able to use this pattern and work really well for them, I ended up having to do quite a significant amount of adjusting to get it to fit the way that I wanted to, as well as it to be just right for my body. I ended up doing a significant amount of changes to the bodice. In the front, I had to do a small bust adjustment. I also did have to lengthen this pattern as well as adjust some of the openings on the dress itself. I had to kind of take in areas to really sculpt this pattern to be what I wanted it to be. I had no idea originally how this was going to progress. I just knew I wanted a princess seam bodice, and I liked that bodice a lot. And so I really focused a lot on trying to make a dress that really highlighted my personal shape and the things that I really like about my own body. We decided that we were going to have an outdoor wedding, and immediately I had just had this vision of just a beautiful white gown that was just trailing through the woods. And how crazy that is, because when you go to, for instance, Rocky Mountain National Park, which is right next to or right on the edge of where I got married, people are in their hiking boots and like full hiking athletic wear, and you know, here I am teetering with my dress. But that was something I wanted so much, and it's something that I think is just so beautiful, that things don't have to fit, things don't have to mesh well together to be beautiful and stunning. And in a lot of ways, that's something that I love the most about my own personality and myself. So I wanted that to be translated very clearly with the design of my dress, as well as with the fabrics that I chose and all of that. So I knew I wanted a princess seam bodice. I knew my wedding was going to be outside, and I was just like, what would be so extravagant and awesome? And I was like, a train. A train on my dress. So how can I get to a train? So now I was piecing together things basically in a way to get to that train. Now, I could have, you know, just had a really long skirt, all one piece, but I knew that I wanted there to be a lot of excess, just a lot of fabric, a lot of everything. And I now had made the decision that I wanted spaghetti straps for my dress, because I thought that was just such a cool detail to have the spaghetti straps with this humongous dress at the bottom. So cool. Technically though, it was wild, because how was I going to support a dress that had just tons of fabric, tons of embroidery, tons of all of that stuff, with spaghetti straps? How was I going to support that? So I was looking around and just kind of looking at dresses with spaghetti straps with huge skirts. And I saw a lot about adding boning, adding a lot of twill tape to secure your seams and things like, or to add support to your seam lines. Things like that, just really adding more and more support. And I didn't end up adding boning into my dress. I decided to add more structure into my dress by adding interfacing. And interfacing is something that I played around with a lot. I originally started with something that was a little bit too heavy and too stiff to give me the kind of cast-like appearance of my dress. I wanted my dress to be very stable and very much so it to look like it was just a part of me. Just very close fitting, very tight, and I wanted to have the skirt to be able to have the most motion from my dress. So I decided to add a waistband onto the bodice, and at this point I was just like, okay, a waistband is going to be awesome, because not only does that give me another point for my weight, for the weight of this dress to sit on, but it also gives me a really great opportunity to add in some stability and some really great structure. Now, I am not someone who is like technique over everything. What is the actual standard for doing this? I want to do what's going to work and cause me the least amount of stress, because this was my dress, not for someone else. And if it looked a little crazy on the inside, I was okay with that. My dress actually doesn't look very crazy on the inside, so I was pleased about that. But I ended up adding like I said, the twill tape into my waistband and also into the seams because I was using a crepe fabric. Now I knew for a fact from the very beginning that I was going to use crepe as the base of my dress, and I also knew that I was not going to use a silk crepe because of a lot of reasons, but the most important reason being I am someone who knew I did not want to spend thousands on this dress. That was one benefit that I completely wanted to take advantage of when I made this dress. I wanted it to be cost effective, but I also still wanted it to be effective in its design. I wanted it to still look the way I wanted it to look, but I didn't want to pay an astronomical price. I mean, I'm making this, so I could decide how expensive it's going to be. So I decided to use crepe fabric from Joann, and I used my coupon every single time. I bought a bolt. I bought a total of 2 bolts of crepe fabric from Joann, used my 60% off coupon, and paid around $3 per yard for the crepe for my dress. And I was incredibly excited about that price because I did a full muslin draft of the dress up into the pencil skirt part, and I used just a YouTube video to do my pencil skirt. Literally just a YouTube video, drafted it based off of my own measurements. There are many blogs and YouTube videos and books and things that can show you how to do all of the things that I'm talking about. I will link some of the ones that I really like down below, and hopefully that could be helpful for you if you are thinking about drafting up some things yourself. It is also a good thing to mention that you can buy from a designer or from a company an actual, just a sloper for any design that you want. So a sloper for a pencil skirt, you could do a sloper for a princess seam bodice, all of that kind of thing, and adjust that to be how it works for you. Now, I definitely didn't think about that at the time. I could have, but I ended up just drafting it out myself, and it ended up being exact proportions for me. It fit me amazingly because I had played around with the shape of this skirt so much. I thought that I was going to need more space in my waist, or I'm sorry, in my hip line. So if you can see, I'll put the video up of me wearing the muslin that I made, and you can see how it kind of sticks out on one side, and I had the sense enough to just go ahead and make the adjustment and show the difference there. So I did still tweak my pattern quite a bit, and it really did fit me perfectly. Like, after I was able to make those adjustments and everything, it was time to, I guess, move on from there. I wish that I had been better about keeping documentation on how I was working through this dress, but if you can imagine, I have 2 months to get this all put together, and right now, this is me in July 16th in my planner, because I'm looking at my planner right now, was when I put in the last dart for the muslin that I have now. And I ended up only making, I want to say, technically 2 muslins of this dress. The first one was to do just the bodice, and I don't know where that's at now. I don't know where that is at now. But then I have the second muslin that I made, and this one is made out of crepe. This one does not fit me super duper well. It is not the best fitting thing that I've ever made, but that's why you make the muslin. You make the muslin so that you can make those mistakes and have it fit you crazy, and then you resolve that. So my sewing this muslin, the second one, really showed me a lot of things. When I started working on this part of the dress, when I got to this stage, I was kind of in a place to where I was playing around with a lot of different elements. This has the heavier weight interfacing that I used originally that I ended up changing out for something much lighter. I ended up using Featherweight, I think it's what it's called, the Featherweight Pellon interfacing. It was important to me that this dress not be a hassle also. And what, Zaji? You want an extravagant dress that has all these details and you don't want it to be a hassle? No, and it wasn't. I made sure that I didn't stress out about this dress. If I finished it, I finished it. If I didn't finish it, it wasn't finished. But I was confident in my own skills, and because I chose a design, like I said, that are pretty standard things to fit, and not only to fit, but also to sew up. There isn't anything that's too crazy wild in the techniques that I ended up using for the final version of my dress. You can see I had a lot of excess. I was just guessing on straps at this point, and I finally pinned down how long I wanted this strap to be for it to fit the way that I wanted to. This was also kind of where I kind of discovered that you're not going to be able to see because this is white, okay? And my stitching is white, so that's super helpful. But I had some issues in the front because my chest, I knew I wasn't going to be wearing a bra or cups or anything underneath it, so I wanted this dress to be almost negative ease in a woven garment, which is not always super comfortable, and also sometimes it can be a little bit too much and will start to pull the back of the dress to the front, like it'll gape in the back, which is what I didn't want at all. And I didn't want to fuss around with fashion tape and things like that. I just wanted it to fit right. So I ended up taking or adding a couple, not a couple, I think I added a 1/2 inch of ease back into the dress, and I think that ended up working out perfectly for me. You can see in the video that this dress by itself I really, really loved. And even on my muslin, I'm going to try to show you here. Where is it? Okay, so this is the side seam. This is where I took out the extra space for to adjust my skirt and try to do the fitting for that and keep making it look closer and closer and closer and closer to how I wanted it to. And this is something that I think is just such a valuable process, and I 100% would do my muslins all over again and do 2 again, because there is definitely no reason for you to embark on a project without making a muslin, especially if it's with something that you are doing for the first time. Now, if you're just taking something that you already have maybe made before and you're just changing the fabrics up with it, then you won't have to do a muslin. If you are choosing to go that route, it just, you know, isn't necessarily worth your time or effort to make that muslin because you already have it fit. I don't have any princess bodice dresses that look like this. It's actually not a style that I typically do go for princess bodices in general, just because they're more difficult for me to fit because I'm just long and I have to add it. It was a whole process. So I'm happy that I did the muslin. It was extremely valuable information. Moving forward, I felt very, 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 very confident to continue sewing on my dress. I think that there was nothing that was going to prepare me to actually work with the final lace that I used for my dress. Now, I chose to use a lace from a company that I found on Etsy. Now, if they are still open, I will link it down below. I hope that I have some screenshots of that fabric if they don't sell it anymore so that I could put it in this video. But it was something that, to me at the time, I was just like, this is the most beautiful thing I've ever seen in my life. I want it right now. I knew that I wanted to do a lace that already had the embroidery and the beads and the 3D flowers on the fabric already, because I knew I didn't have the time to add those myself, but I knew I wanted that effect, and I knew that I wanted to not have to worry about trying to make it work by using multiple, or like I said, doing the beading and the embroidery and things like that myself or something. That would just be so crazy. There's lots of people who do that kind of thing themselves, and kudos to you. I hope that you have plenty of time to not be stressed while doing that, but that was just something that I knew I wanted, and I absolutely had to find that fabric. I checked all online. I had been to probably every website that I could find from a Google search that sold a fabric that had 3D flowers on it, and this was the most unique fabric that I had ever seen before, and it was honestly the prettiest fabric I ever saw. And I hope that I can show to you what it looks like, because I saw that, and you see this fabric, and no one else saw this fabric the way I saw it, because I was just like, and I'm gonna cut it up. And I'm not going to use any of these motifs that are large scale on here in the way that they are. So as you can see, it's definitely a directional pattern. It has those kind of waves that go from one side, that kind of the fabric and design gets denser the closer you get to that really beautiful lace edge. And I wish that it would have just been solid all the way through, but it wasn't. And I knew that I didn't want it to look like that on my dress. That was not what I was going for. And I was like, I just wish, in my head I was like, I just wish all of these little spirals could just come together and just be really dense all around and just do that. And in my head I'm thinking this, and I'm saying this out loud to like my mom and, you know, friends that I'm talking to about making this dress, and they're like, oh, okay. And I'm just like, is that crazy? I see this fabric and I'm like, you're cute how you are, but I want you to be completely different. And it ended up working out for me, actually. I then had to go back to the drawing board. So now at this point of my final dress, I had sewn, I want to say I had sewn up to the skirt. So my dress is actually double, or is it double lined? Technically my dress is double lined because there is a solid white dress like this underneath the lace. And on the skirt, it has a lining plus the layer of my, the white crepe. So there's 2 layers of crepe and then the lace over top for the skirt. I don't know why I said that's so difficult. So I knew that I wanted to have a train on this skirt. So here we are back again. I want a train, okay? I want a train on this skirt. I am chugging along through making it. I've got everything done. I'm just like, okay, yes, I'm going through this. This is amazing. Oh my God, I am so obsessed with everything here. And so what I decided, instead of having a super long train, because the way that my lace was, it really wasn't a way to make that kind of effect happen. And I knew I wanted to use this lace, and I was like, you know what? Scrap having a stupid long train, because that's just going to be absolutely miserable to try to deal with, because I was fighting sticks, pica, which are small, like, I think they're rodents, that are running through everywhere. There is still animals and stuff, so there is actual animal poop and squirrels and elk and all kinds of stuff. So I am still gonna have to drag my dress through all of this, and I decided it was more important to have something that's really beautiful as opposed to something that is going to make me uncomfortable and make the experience not as fun. Like, yes, it's fun to be extra until it starts bothering everyone and your dress is completely brown, covered in all kinds of stuff. So, yeah. I then changed my mind and I was like, okay, now I need to make a train that's a little bit more conservative, but also I want to still be able to put a ton of fabric. So I thought for a really long time, and there was about 2 weeks within this 2-month period that I was like, I don't know what I'm doing for my skirt. I don't know what the heck's going on. And my mom every day is calling me like, hey, Zaji, did you work on your dress anymore? And I was like, no. She was like, well, and you know, my mom was like, well, it's this beautiful dress, even, you know, without having, you know, that train on there and stuff. And I was just like, I don't care. I want a train. So what I decided to do, instead of giving up and just having this kind of knee length sleeve or little strappy dress to have for my wedding, which would have still been really cute, would have been still really cute. But I knew I wanted to have that train, so I made at this point, the dress could actually fit onto my mannequin. My mannequin is actually not my same size. And also my mannequin is not as long as I am. And so for a dress that's as tight as this is, made out of woven fabric, it really didn't fit onto my mannequin all that well. But I was able to put it onto the mannequin enough so that I was able to freehand a pattern. I regret so much not filming the process of me doing this. So I put my dress onto my mannequin, and all I did was take my measuring tape, and I guess this would be what you would call draping. I kind of just draped a skirt together. But I knew I wanted it to be kind of like a circle skirt just attached to the bottom of my pencil skirt. So what I was thinking about was, how long do I need to make this? How long does this skirt need to be everywhere? So I took those measurements down. So I took my measuring tape from the bottom of my skirt to about where I wanted my skirt to stop on the ground behind me. Now I did make sure to make my mannequin, raise my mannequin to be as tall as I am so that this worked. And I measured from there, took that measurement, then I went to the side panels and took a measurement down to about where I wanted those to hit, and went down and went down. And then I added in the seam allowance that was up at the top of the seam allowance I would need to attach the skirt to the pencil skirt. And I got out a big piece of tracing paper. I actually use medical paper for my patterns. This is just super thin. I will have this linked down below because it's great to have. All I did was I put like 2 yard-long pieces. I think actually it ended up being 3 yard-long pieces of this paper together and taped them. And I just took my measurements to the paper. I measured the circumference around the bottom of my skirt, and I put that down in the middle of those papers. And then after that, I took those measurements that I had taken from the length from the front to the floor, from the sides to the floor, from the back to the floor, from the bottom of my pencil skirt, and I just translated those onto the tracing paper. Hold on one second. I'm going to actually get that pattern. Okay, so for that part of the skirt, I now realize that obviously, like I said, I wanted all of the pieces of my lace to come together. So I very much so designed this dress, or designed the bottom of this dress, to completely accommodate my specific fabric. So I knew that, because I had already ordered this fabric, I ordered a lot of it because I knew I just wanted the motif. I wasn't concerned with any of that see-through part that had nothing on it. Who wants that? Just kidding, but I knew I wasn't going to use any of that, so I ordered quite a bit of this fabric. And I measured just the width of the bottom of the motif where the lace edge was. So about how wide at the bottom is each section of these kind of swirls going up. And it was roughly a foot. Each part was roughly about a foot. And that measurement was okay for me. And it worked out very well because I then put this circle skirt pattern that I made. Now, I split it up into pieces, like pie pieces essentially, so that each edge around the bottom of the skirt measured to be about a foot long, or a foot wide. So this is one pattern piece from the skirt, and I broke this skirt up into, oh my gosh, yikes. I broke this skirt up into, I believe, 8 pieces, and each piece is mirrored. So it's a total of 16 pieces, pie pieces, that make up that one circle skirt that goes around. So I seamed all of these pie pieces together to make the overlay of my train for the bottom of my dress. And it worked out really great. If you can kind of see at the top, you know, it's still rounded. They're not completely like pointed like an actual pie piece because this is needed, it did need to still be round to go around my skirt. So that was, I was very proud of myself for doing that and figuring out how I was going to get as much of that embroidery and flowers and beads, as much of it onto my dress as I possibly could. And I thought this was a really great way to manipulate the fabric to do what I wanted and to really create the vision that I really, really wanted in the end. So this was such a fun project for me. I really loved the challenge that was set out in front of me, and once I was able to figure out how I could make this lace look the way I wanted it to, everything just felt like it fell into place. You know, I seamed up all 16 seams, or 16 or 17 seams. I'm not really sure how many it ended up being to put those all together. And I just put a layer of just regular white, like just regular white ribbon. I sewed that around the very top of my skirt and of the lace part of the skirt so that the mesh wouldn't stretch out, because the lace and everything that was on this fabric was on a mesh base. So there was lace that was basically, I guess, sewn onto the bottom of it. It was just beautiful fabric anyway, but the mesh itself was very stretchy. So that was something that I knew I needed to avoid having happen, because I needed to add stability for my dress so that it didn't stretch out, and also so that it didn't rip and tear. And so just to add a little bit of extra stability in there. I used the white ribbon because I really just thought it would sit a lot better in the seam than twill tape, especially because this is going to be something that was an overlay. So there wasn't going to be a seam or another fabric kind of in between where that ribbon was going to be at. And I didn't want it to add too much bulk and stand out really weird at that seam line. And I think I was able to effectively achieve that result by using the ribbon. You could, of course, use twill tape, or, you know, there's all kinds of ways to stabilize, but I chose ribbon just because I like how ribbon can be very strong in a seam, but also it is very malleable and very thin. So my dress was heavy, but it wasn't quite that heavy to tear the ribbon. So I was able to then gather the skirt down, because one thing that I did add into the pattern, and I didn't say that before, was I added just an extra bit of, I guess, width for the skirt, so that I also could, for the train, so that I also could gather it so that I literally could have as much of this lace as I possibly could. And those were just little tweaks and things that I had made with the pattern itself. I didn't actually do a muslin for the train at all, and that was a huge risk, but I felt fairly confident in my drafting skills at that point, and it did actually work out perfectly. So you might want to do a muslin for those kinds of details as well. I just really didn't have the time to do another muslin, and I was just like, I'd already had that resolve, like, if this didn't work, I could use all of this lace and everything for something else. Like, I was thinking maybe it could be a part of my reception dress. There was all kinds of ways that I could think about repurposing the skirt if it didn't actually work out for my wedding dress and for this lace and everything. And I was just like, you know, I had that resolve. I jumped right in, and it ended up paying off for me. I love the effect that I was able to get. Okay, so I have in my planner that I needed to finish my wedding dress August 26th. For real. Okay, I finished my wedding dress on August 26th. My wedding was September 12th. Oh, I also was sewing like other things outside of my wedding dress this week, which I'm still like thinking back, like it blows my mind. Like, what was I doing? I had finished sewing. I had 2 pony tanks from Chalk and Notch that I worked on, and I started working on Nala's Flower Girl dress on the 30th of August. Y'all, for real. Okay, this was crazy. I'm literally looking at my planner like, what? Okay, I know I do a lot, but I'm still just like amazed that I was doing so much at this time. But I was so excited about finishing my dress. I then started working on my daughter's Flower Girl dress. I made Little Lizard King's Lienz, which is a pattern that has a really beautiful overlay already in it, and I just thought it was so cute, and I thought it would be very cute to have a dress that was similar to my dress but not similar to my dress, because I love to match with my daughter. You all know I love to match with my daughter, but I didn't want to match with my daughter on my wedding day. I mean, is that too much to ask? I don't know, but I didn't. So what I did was make a dress that definitely had sleeves, which the Lienz pattern does have, and I made her a cute little puff sleeve that had a nice band, and she has the opposite side of the lace that I used for my dress as the overlay for her dress. So it ended up being just naturally similar to my dress, but very much so still different in kind of its own design. So I started working on my daughter's reception dress shortly after I finished her Flower Girl dress, and it looks like I actually did finish Nala's Flower Girl dress on the 6th, and I used Little Lizard King's Mavora pattern for that dress, and I used quilting cotton that I got from either Walmart or Joann. I'm not 100% sure. But I loved those sunflowers, and I thought it would be beautiful since my wedding did have sunflowers as the floral arrangements and everything. So I thought it would just be really beautiful to have sunflowers for her reception outfit, so that again she could kind of fit in with the wedding, but she still stands apart from Bryan and I, because it is our event and not her event, and I love her to death, but hey, she was still cute. She just wasn't matching with us. And also toddlers in all white leave something to be desired. So I didn't do that. Afterwards, I started working on my husband's reception outfit. So I started working on his dress, or his top, the top tunic for his pattern. I cut that out on the 6th, I'm sure. On the 7th is when I started sewing that up. I finished it on the 8th. On the 9th, I started his pants, finished his pants, cleaned my house, and then I decided that I wanted to make one more thing, and that was a little clutch bag, and I will put a photo where you can kind of see that, just using the linen from the leftover linen from my reception outfits and the lace from my dress. And I had a really cute clutch bag that went with everything, and I was able to keep all of my things I needed for my wedding, like my makeup, my phone, my keys. Actually, I didn't have my keys. I think Bryan was driving and I was with my family. My family took me to and from the wedding. So he had our keys, and I just had like lip stuff in there, and yeah, it was great. I was so happy that I just sewed that up the night before. So wow. I actually ended up making more things. I made a lot more things that year in general, but just for the wedding, those are all the things that I made. All the juicy details, all in this video. So, for his pattern, I didn't say, but I used Butterick, or not Butterick. I think it's C&So 6617. That number might be super wrong, so I will just put a photo of it and have it linked down below for you, but that was the pattern that I used for him. I originally was thinking that our reception outfits would match, but they didn't end up matching. I didn't want to wear a tunic on my reception, because I don't wear pants really ever. It's not really ever. I need to stop saying that, but I am most often wearing a dress or a skirt than I am ever wearing pants. And it would just be weird for me to be wearing pants on my wedding day when I hardly ever wear them on a regular basis. So anywho, my reception dress I have talked about before, but I used Made for Mermaids Reece pattern. I hacked it to have a maxi length circle skirt. I think it's a half circle skirt, and it's a super easy adjustment to do. You just have to lengthen the lines to be the skirt to be as long as you like your maxi garments to hit, and everything else is basically the same. I used the same heavyweight linen for both my reception outfit and Bryan's reception outfit, and yeah, I made my reception dress it was probably the first thing that I made. I think that I made that dress before I had even finished making my actual wedding dress. So that was a crazy whirlwind. Okay, so I did take a quick snack break. My husband ordered me Panera. Let's go ahead and get into the questions that you asked on Instagram. Did you do your hair and makeup for your wedding? I did not do my hair for my wedding. I went to my normal loctician. At the time, my locks were not as mature as they are now, so they were quite a bit thinner than my locks are now. So I knew that I wanted to go and get my hair actually professionally done because I can retwist my own hair, but she is amazing and she just made them look so smooth, and my roller set that I had was absolutely impeccable. Like, my hair stayed curly for weeks after she did it. So that doesn't happen when I do my own curls. So I definitely didn't do my own hair, but I did do my own makeup. If you didn't know, I was a freelancing makeup artist for a number of years before I moved to Colorado, and I stopped doing makeup because I was partially going to school. So I already knew I was going to do my own makeup, and how you see me now is generally how I leave my house, because I love makeup, and I have always loved makeup since I was 13. So I think that was something that was super exciting for me, but I didn't do a trial on myself before my wedding, which was, I mean, it was just a little bit unnecessary for me to do a trial because, like I said, I wear the amount of makeup I wore on my wedding on a regular basis. So I literally was just doing my regular routine. The only thing that I think I really changed up for my wedding was the fact that I tried not to use as much glittery highlight because that doesn't look as great in professional photos as it does like on Instagram and like in video and stuff like that. So I was pretty happy with how my makeup turned out. I was really, like, I don't know, doing my makeup on my wedding day was just like one thing that also really helped me calm down. So yeah. And like, you know, because you get all excited, and I was just like, and everyone, I was getting ready at my mom and my grandmother and my sister stayed at this Airbnb, and my uncle. So they were all in an Airbnb in Fort Collins, which was not where we actually got married. And I got ready there, and then we traveled to where the ceremony was at afterwards. So everybody else is like getting ready, and I'm literally in one of the rooms in the Airbnb, and I'm like, you know, everyone, I feel like everyone else was freaking out getting ready, and I was just like, la 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 la, ooh, I could blend that a little more, you know. I'm just like, I was casually getting ready. It was complete chaos happening outside of me getting ready. It's just, but I was just casually, you know, applying blush and putting my lashes on, you know. The next question that I got was from Nina DIY. She says, how long did you plan it, and how long did it take to make it? Talking about my wedding dress, I'm sure. I didn't actually plan my dress, as I talked about. I really just kind of started from scratch when my husband proposed to me. I started having ideas, but I didn't want to think about it too much right after my surgery because, you know, it's just kind of heartbreaking when you want to do something and you know you can't. You could, but you shouldn't. And I'm someone who's always like, I will, even though I shouldn't. So I tried not to think about it too much until I was actually cleared to start working with my hands again. So I started, I guess, planning out and trying to think about what ideas I wanted in July. And the total time that it took me to actually put my dress together was about 2 months because I really wanted to take my time sewing it up. It was a little less, actually a little less than 2 months. So it took me some time, but as I mentioned earlier in the video, I was sewing still a lot of other things outside of my wedding dress. I was still working on other projects with brands and things like that. So, yeah, it took me 2 months, but I feel like if I really, you know, put the actual time that I spent on it, it probably took me more closely to about 3 weeks to actually sew up, cut out, piece together, all that kind of stuff. And Tracy asked kind of the same thing. How long did it take to make, and would you do it again? The Tracy Show. Hey girl. Would I do it again? Absolutely. And I have been fighting the urge super hard on making wedding dresses and selling them as a part of my business. I do primarily, for garments that I actually make, I typically only make children's clothing because that's something that I always love to make. I always love to make little ditty dresses. But full-blown wedding dresses, I don't know if I can commit my heart to a project like that every single time. Ugh, I love the process of making mine. And I often think about, you know, maybe having that magic again, making a dress that's really beautiful and special for someone else. So I think about it all the time. I would definitely do it again. Let's see. And then book model Daisha. I'm sorry. I don't know how to say your name, and that really hurts my feelings because I hate when people butcher mine. So let me know how you say your name in this video if you're watching. She asks, did you have bridesmaids? If so, did you make their dresses? And also, did you use a pattern to make your wedding dress? I did not have bridesmaids. We didn't have a wedding party at all because it would basically have just been the guests that we had at our wedding. And the only people that would be left over would be like my mom and like his parents, and everybody else would be standing up on the stage. So it just kind of didn't make sense. I had a really small wedding. There was less than 20 people at my ceremony, and I really wanted to make sure that my wedding was very small and very intimate. That was super important to me, which is also kind of like, you know, why'd you make this crazy dress that no one's gonna see? But everybody who was important to me did see it, and all of my friends here have seen my dress. So, you know, it was nice to be able to have a really small ceremony, and I was able to actually intimately connect with everyone and talk with everyone there and actually be a part of that experience. It was really cool to me. So it was really only our family and very close friends that came. And I spoke about this earlier in the video as well. I did not use a pattern in some ways. In some, I did kind of use a pattern, but I made lots of changes to that and added a ton more into all the other details. So I kind of used a pattern for the bodice of my dress-ish. And then the pencil skirt, as I said, I drafted up myself. Waistband, I drafted up myself. And the train, drafted up myself. Lots of really nice comments. You all are so sweet to me. So then I have Posh Pilar. She says, beautiful couple, where did you source fabric? How did you do fittings? Did you start with a pattern or completely self-draft? And she said she'd also like to know about the veil too. Oh yeah, I didn't even talk about the veil. So the veil actually I didn't make, so I'll just get that out of the way. I didn't make the veil. I actually originally had not planned on having a veil at all, but my mom saw this veil. I want to say she got it from David's Bridal. If I can find it, I will link it down below. And she saw it and she said that she thought it matched my dress perfectly. I saw it and I agreed, and it was beautiful and perfect for the wedding. So yeah, I didn't make that veil, but it is gorgeous, is it not? Oh my goodness. I wish I had made my own veil, but I didn't. It was amazing that she did find that for me though, because literally did not even cross my mind prior to that. But also, where did you source your fabric? So as I mentioned, the white fabric, I don't think I mentioned about the linen. Okay, so the white crepe that I use as the lining for my wedding dress, I got that from Joann. Literally, I paid $3.99 a yard for that. I think at the end of the day, I ended up buying 2.5 bolts of that crepe. What else? Oh, the lace over top, as I said, I got from an Etsy seller. If they are still selling that fabric, I will have it linked down below for you as well. My daughter's dress was made from the leftovers from my wedding dress, her flower girl dress, and her reception dress. I got that fabric from either Joann or Walmart, not sure. And then my husband and myself, our reception outfits are made with heavyweight linen from fabricstore.com. I'll have them linked down below. It is my very favorite place to get heavyweight linen from. I love just the feel of that linen after you wash it, and I feel like it's so great for making garments in white that you don't have to end up layering or adding a lining or anything to. It's just perfect. And then how did you do fittings? So I just did them on myself. I literally just made up the pattern. For fittings, my favorite book that I look to is Perfect Fitting. This one is by The Complete Photo Guide to Perfect Fitting. It's by Sarah Veblen, and it is one of my favorite books because I am a visual learner, and this book is something that I refer to often because I use it to make all kinds of adjustments. I usually am someone who has to make quite a few adjustments, especially if I'm making something that has any sort of pant or anything to it. But I did refer to this dress a lot, or to this book a lot, when I was in the very beginning stages of putting my dress together. So it was kind of like a mix of just making muslins, adjusting the muslin, and then recording that change on the pattern pieces, and just kind of editing from there. I ended up, as I said, I started off with one muslin that was specifically just for the bodice and getting that shaping down, and then I had another muslin, which I shared in this video as well, that I did all the way up to the pencil skirt for. And yeah, that was basically how I did those. I just have a long mirror. I take video of myself when I do anything that has extensive fitting to it, because video is way more accurate than just taking photos. So I looked at that, and then kind of, I have a pretty good eye for making those adjustments on my own, and yeah, just kind of fixed and repaired as I needed to within the muslin and the pattern pieces. And then she says, did you start with a pattern or completely self-draw? So I already talked about that. So yeah. And then someone else said, and it's not really a question, but she said, we all need to feel like a pretty princess on our wedding day, right? And yes, we do. And I did feel like a pretty princess. It was an incredible day, an incredible experience. I was so happy that I was able to make the garments that I did and the pieces that I did for this ceremony, because it just made me feel so happy to see them out there. You know, when you have a skill and you get to flex that muscle and really show off what you can do, it's awesome when it actually comes to fruition. And I didn't really have any doubts that I was going to have, you know, a pretty dress to wear on my wedding, at my wedding, but I was so excited to be able to reveal this dress to my husband, and we did have kind of like a reveal that happened when I first got there. So I got there, and he was standing where you can see us taking the picture. So he was just standing over there. And here I come, like hobbling down one of the like many hills to get deeper down into where our ceremony was at. And like, I know he saw, you know, like my head and stuff, and, you know, slowly more and more he could see of me, and I could just see his face. It was amazing. I wish we had gotten photos of his reaction, but it was so incredible just to see how his reaction was to something that I made that was so special for both of us. You know, his experience in the wedding is seeing me in the wedding. You know, his experience is seeing me, because he can't look at him and us together except for through pictures. But it's incredible to, you know, show off your very best to someone that you love so much, and to just the amount of pride that I felt that day in being able to make all of those pieces and them all actually come together was awesome. I felt like a pretty princess. I felt like the strongest woman alive. I felt like on cloud nine the whole day. It was just such a crazy time getting there, because I was doing so much. But when the day actually came and having that all there, it was awesome. It was awesome. It was awesome. So that's just going to be the end of this video. I hope that I was able to answer any questions that you had for me. And if not, please do leave them down below. As I mentioned before, I did already have an interview with the Workroom Social talking about my, talking about myself, and also talking about the wedding. And if you're interested, I will have that link down below. But if you want to check out more wedding content, she has lots. I think she has a couple other interviews as well with other people who have made their wedding outfits, and I really encourage you to check them out. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I hope to see you in the next one. Have a good day. Bye-bye.